Here's to freedom, my wife said, raising her glass high. I'm leaving you, for someone younger. Someone who actually excites me. The clink of crystal. The flash of grins. My sons, Jason and Drew, started clapping. Not awkwardly. Not out of shock. But genuinely. Cheerfully. Like this was a sitcom twist they'd seen coming and supported. I looked at the three of them. My wife, still in her evening gown. Jason, with that smug little smirk he always wore when he thought he was smarter than me. Drew, eyes full of amusement like this was all a joke. My name is Elliot Granger. I turned 51 today. I'm the man who paid for this house. Who gave my life to a family that never once looked back to see if I was okay. The man they just clapped out of his own marriage like an applause break at the end of a sad play. I set down my fork. Took a slow sip of wine. Then I smiled, gently, coldly. Stay happy, boys, I said. But know one thing. The table quieted. I'm not your biological father. I adopted you from an orphanage out of pity. Their hands froze midair. And today my pity is over. Jason dropped his fork. It clattered against the plate and echoed louder than it should have. Drew blinked like his brain couldn't compute the sentence. What are you talking about? He asked, almost laughing. You're not serious, Jason snapped. You raised us. I clothed you. Fed you. Gave you names, I interrupted, keeping my voice steady. That doesn't mean I owed you my soul. Amanda, my wife, finally spoke. This is a joke. Elliot, sit down. You're not ruining the boys' lives over this. You already did that part, I said, glancing at her, then back to them. Everything I gave you was built on trust. And you applauded when she broke it. Their faces fell, but I didn't stop. I adopted you both when you were 6 and 4. You were abandoned. Jason, you couldn't even speak full sentences. Drew, you cried every night for your real mommy, for 6 months. I was the one who stayed. Amanda's face went pale. I buried that truth to protect your pride. But you sided with betrayal. You earned the truth. Drew looked down at his plate. Jason's fists were clenched. Amanda stood. You're bluffing. I turned toward the hallway. Want to see the papers? I walked back into the dining room holding a thin, weathered folder. No drama. No rush. Just paper. I placed it in the center of the table and slid it toward them. Adoption certificates. Court stamps. Dates. Names crossed out and replaced with mine. Jason grabbed it first. His hands shook as he flipped through the pages, faster and faster, like if he moved quickly enough the truth would blur. This is fake, he muttered. This has to be fake. Drew leaned over his shoulder. His face drained of color. It's real, he whispered. Those are our names. Amanda lunged forward. Enough, she shouted. You're doing this to hurt us. You're angry, Elliot, but this is cruel. No, I said quietly. Cruel was teaching them to laugh when someone who loved them was humiliated. I looked at my sons, no, the boys I raised. I never once reminded you that you were chosen. I let you believe I was lucky to have you. Jason's voice cracked. So what now? You just stopped being our father? I met his eyes. I stopped being that the moment you clapped. Amanda stood frozen but not silent. Her voice cut through the room like glass. You think this makes you powerful? What, humiliating us? You think this is justice? I turned slowly. No, it's not justice. It's honesty. The kind you never gave me. She looked around, desperate for backup. But Jason and Drew weren't looking at her. They were staring at me like they were seeing me for the first time, and themselves. You raised us, Jason said, barely above a whisper. You paid for everything. You were their birthdays, games? And none of it mattered, I said. The moment your mother decided I was disposable, you didn't even blink. I was just the guy who funded your life. Amanda stepped forward. They were following my lead. Don't punish them for my decision. You're right, I said calmly. They were following your lead. So I won't punish them. I walked to the wall safe, spun the code, and retrieved a second envelope, this one thicker. Amanda's eyes darted between me and the envelope. But I also won't fund strangers. I handed it to my lawyer, who'd been sitting silently nearby. Start the process. My lawyer, Eleanor, stood and began unpacking the document packet with mechanical precision. Amanda's face dropped. What process? I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to sit in the silence, the same silence she'd left me in on my birthday. Eleanor spoke instead. The transfer of full ownership of assets originally co-owned. Mr. Reed had me prepare everything weeks ago. Just in case today went how he suspected. Amanda's lips parted, stunned. Wait, what assets? I turned to the boys. The house, the vehicles, the investments. Everything I ever put both our names on. All of it was funded by me. She contributed nothing. But I kept her name out of respect. And the boys? Amanda snapped. You raised them. You said they were your sons. They were. Until they clapped while you tried to break me. Jason blinked. You're cutting us off? I didn't answer. I just handed each of them a separate envelope. Inside was a letter. And a choice. Open them when I'm gone. Amanda stepped toward me, voice shaking. You're going to regret this. I gave her the calmest look I'd ever given. No. I regret staying quiet for 26 years. Then I walked out. I didn't return to the main house. I had no need to. Instead, I drove 3 hours to a property in Vermont, one I'd bought years ago and never told anyone about. It was peaceful. By the time I arrived, the messages were already pouring in. Jason, Dad, please call me. Drew, we read your letters. Please don't cut us off. Amanda didn't message at all. Instead, she posted on social media a carefully worded essay about narcissistic husbands and emotional abandonment. I didn't respond. Why give fire what it craves? Eleanor called. They've already tried to block the asset transfers. But you were smart. It's airtight. Amanda signed over everything 5 years ago in the post-surgery documents. You remember? I remember, I said. She didn't read a word. Now she's going to read every line. I poured a drink and stood out on the deck, watching the sun dip behind snow-covered trees. Jason messaged again. You were always more of a father than anyone deserved. I'm sorry. That one hit me. Not because I needed the apology, but because he'd finally called me father, not dad. It was the first honest thing he'd ever said. 3 weeks passed. Amanda tried everything, lawyers, threats, even the media. But the story didn't spread the way she hoped. Turns out, when your victim is quiet and calm, the audience stops listening to outrage. Jason and Drew showed up at my Vermont cabin. Unannounced. I opened the door and there they stood. No jackets, just regret in their eyes. Can we talk? Jason asked. I let them in. We sat in silence for a long time, fire crackling. We opened the letters, Drew said. You wrote about each of us. About the times you helped us when Mom didn't know how. Jason added, you didn't just adopt us. You fought for us. And we forgot. I nodded slowly. You didn't forget. You chose convenience. Jason didn't argue. He just said, we're ready to rebuild. But we'll follow your terms this time. I stood and walked to the safe. Pulled out 2 envelopes. What are those? Drew asked. Trust options, I replied. Not money. Choices. You can read them. Or burn them. They didn't reach for them immediately. They looked at me, waiting for permission. That's how I knew they'd changed. So I handed them over. They left quietly after reading the envelopes. No begging. No promises. Just Jason saying, we'll be better men. Whether or not you watch us do it. That was enough for me. Amanda, on the other hand, tried filing one last suit, an emotional damages claim. But Eleanor countered it with receipts, records, and a signed confession Amanda had written years ago as part of her therapy homework. She forgot I'd kept it. The court threw her case out within a week. I didn't celebrate. I just went for a walk. The forest around my cabin was quiet, but not empty. Birds, wind, the distant sound of life continuing, all things I hadn't noticed while living for someone else's comfort. Back home, I opened a photo album. The early days, Amanda laughing, the boys smiling, me holding all 3 of them like a man who had finally found purpose. I didn't hate those memories. I just no longer lived in them. A letter from Jason arrived a week later. We're both working now. Started from zero. Not asking for anything. Just wanted you to know. I smiled. Pity had left. But something better stayed behind.